Today, we're talking about why everybody building voice agents is actually approaching it the wrong way. Everybody wants to make their AI sound more human. After building over 47 voice agents for clients, I can tell you that how the AI sounds actually has very little to do with how successful the project is. In fact, it's a distraction from the real problem, and nobody's talking about it. Here's what I've learned. 80% of the work with any client project actually has very little to do with AI. And that's why most agencies fail. They're obsessing over the wrong thing. The AI, the prompt, that's the easy part. You can copy and paste that. The voice platforms, they all work essentially the same way. It doesn't actually matter. But there's one thing that kills more AI projects than anything else. And to illustrate my point, I want to give you the perfect example. I call it the Calendly nightmare. Calendly is one of the most popular booking platforms in the world. Millions of people use it. So it's no wonder that our clients often come to us wanting to integrate Calendly with their voice agents. Here's the problem though. Calendly lets you search for available time slots. What it doesn't have is an API to actually let you book those slots. And if you're new, an API is essentially a way for different softwares to communicate to each other. So Calendly has made available an API. One of those requests that you can make is search slots. What doesn't exist is book slot. I want you to think about that for a second. You could have an agent that literally sounds like a person, but when it comes the time to actually perform an action, which is in this case booking that appointment, it is physically impossible using only Calendly. This has nothing to do with your AI. This is a problem of the system that your client is using. And this isn't like some one-off. This is the majority of why projects fail. The success of your agent isn't determined by the quality of the sound. It's determined by how accessible your client's systems are. I'll give you another example. We work with a dentist who used an appointment booking software from like the 90s. It took us 6 months of back and forth with the team that made the software just to get read-only level access to our APIs. So the AI once again could see the slot, it couldn't book it, no matter what we did. Now, working on the prompt of an agent in a situation like this is the equivalent of polishing the paint on a car when there's no engine. That's how core this stuff is to the success of your build. This happens so often that I actually developed a framework around it. It's called Automation First Development. And it has 3 core principles. The first is to become an API detective. Before you even think about any prompt, the first question we ask, and we ask this on our sales calls, is what systems are you using? Your first task isn't to engineer the best prompt. It's to become an expert in your client's systems. To emphasize, the integrations are the project. The voice is just the layer on top of it. It's just the interface for it to work. Then we want to step 2, or pillar 2. Build the backend first. This is backwards to how most people build. They'll start with the voice and then attach automations to it. I build the automations first, identifying what automations need to work. I will test it manually first. Only after I know the automations work will I just build the voice agent on top of it as the glue to connect the automations together. And third and final pillar, the automation first development framework, is you will need to hire. When you do hire, don't hire AI experts. What you need are system experts. If your client has Salesforce, you don't need an AI engineer. You need a Salesforce expert. Because as I've said throughout this entire video, AI component is essentially the same across all the platforms. But connecting a voice agent to Salesforce is very different than connecting it to HubSpot, which is very different than connecting it to Zoho. And within each instance of Salesforce, your client could have a version that is configured completely differently than another Salesforce user. I also want to share with you one of the biggest lessons I learned from these 47 and counting voice projects. Never quote a voice agent without a discovery period. Now, if you can charge for it, even better. And I learned this the hard way. I once quoted a project that, looking back, should have been 4 times what I quoted. And I would have known that had I done a discovery period for it, but I didn't. And if you're wondering what discovery period is a period of 2 to 3 weeks that we sell to people who want us to build voice agents. And we use that time to actually investigate their systems, the type of calls that they want to make. Is it feasible? Are they happy with the current state of voice AI? Is it good enough for them? Are their systems compatible with what they want to achieve? That's all we do. It's investigative work to identify if it's worth building the solution. This is typically $1 to $2 grand, maybe 3 depending on the size of the project, but it does a few things. It filters out people who aren't serious, because if they can't pay $2,000 to $3,000 for a discovery period, then they cannot pay $10,000, $20,000 for a voice agent. It allows us to get more familiar with the system, which makes our development faster And it also allows us to get rid of projects that we never could have taken on in the first place. Now, the feedback you might give me is, well, the voice agent is going to sound really bad if I do it this way. Here's one more thing I've learned while building all these agents. People care far more about how useful your agent is over how it sounds. Think about why we hate phone trees. It's not because the voice sounds robotic, although sure, that is annoying. The core reason why your blood boils when you're put into a phone tree is because you know it's useless. You know it is purely there as a buffer to stall time so that a person can actually pick up the phone and solve your problem. So if people understand that this robot can actually help my problem, it can book my appointment, it can get me a refund, it can reschedule, it can send me an email, whatever it is your robot needs to do, people then are much less concerned with who picked up the phone. They just want their problem solved. So let's recap. If you're building a voice agent, here's what you focus on. Number one, stop focusing on the AI. Focus on the integrations. Spend 80% of your time understanding your client's systems. Number two, build backend first and work your way to voice. Prove it works before you make it talk. Number three, whenever you get a project, do a discovery phase. If you can charge for it, even better. And remember, the foundation of all this is the quality of your voice agent is determined by how useful it is, not how good it sounds. And as a little side note, the agencies that will survive the next 2 years, I don't believe are the ones who have the best AI. They're the ones who will have the most amount of integrations. They're the ones that will be able to make these voice agents as useful as possible. Now, if that changed how you thought about approaching voice agents, feel free to hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment about a specific portion that you'd like me to dive deeper into, and I'll be more than happy to do so.